Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here with another solo dungeon diving episode. This time we're checking out Veteran Wayrest Sewers 1 on the Solo Hybrid Nightblade build. This is a pretty unique build. It's a combination of weapon skills as well as some of the magicka abilities of the Nightblade class, which is basically what makes it a hybrid in my opinion. So we've got a mix of stamina and magicka abilities, running dual wield and bow. The sets I'm using on this build, that's going to be New Moon Acolyte, Clever Alchemist, and the Ice Heart monster set. Now in terms of our abilities, on the front bar, dual wield, we have Killer's Blade, Blood Craze, Sap Essence, Deadly Cloak. I'm using Steel Tornado currently for AoE, and then the Undo Ultimate, that's all our front bar. On the back bar, we've got Debilitate, Summon Shade, we've got Volley, Leeching Strikes, and then Merciless Resolve. For the back bar ultimate, I'm either using Ballista for single target bosses, or I'm using Soul Tether for the AoE damage, healing, and crowd control. So coming up to our first boss, a pretty easy boss, actually, a single target encounter. This is going to be Slime Craw. So I am going to swap out that Deadly Cloak for a better single target ability that's going to be Barbed Trap. And then instead of my Steel Tornado, I'm going to run Reaper's Mark on the front bar. Reaper's Mark is going to give me a nice debuff, both for stamina and magicka-based abilities, making all my skills hit for more damage. You can see this, the special ability on Slime Craw is that Tail Whip. You need to avoid the red as much as possible or block. Either way, you will take less damage and you won't get knocked down. Otherwise, he's going to send you flying with that tail. As you can see right there, I did go flying. Now, in terms of your abilities, you basically want to start on the back bar with your Volley, your Shade, and your Debilitate, and then swap to the front bar, hit him with Blood Craze, do a Sap Essence, lay down a Trap, and then a Reaper's Mark. That's the basic rotation when an enemy is above 25%. Of course, you want to keep your buffs up as well, and then drop your ultimate whenever that comes up. You can see Slime Craw has pretty little health, so he's going to go down pretty quickly. You'll get him into execute range, and then just start hitting him with your Killer's Blade for that bonus execute damage while maintaining your dots and your buffs as best as possible. Moving on to boss number 2, Investigator Garen is a bit more of a challenging fight. There's several mechanics here, which make it more challenging actually. Number 1 is going to be this AoE that he casts that follows you around. Now for this fight specifically, I swapped Barb Target back to Deadly Cloak. And that's because Deadly Cloak actually gives me major evasion. That's going to mean I take much less damage from his AoE attack there. Now he also teleports around the battlefield, which is quite annoying. That means you need to reset your ground AoEs pretty often. And then he does have a channeled knockdown ability as well, which you just saw there. You must block or roll dodge that, or he's going to basically lay you out on the ground. And that does happen every maybe 5 or 6 seconds. You can see he's teleporting again. I'm just going to follow up. And I made one of the cardinal mistakes, which is I forgot to charge my back bar weapon. So I need to actually do that in combat, which you never want to do. But in this case, the build is strong enough. I have enough healing, even on the veteran mode here, where I can survive that. Now you can see I was a little bit thrown off though, so I did take that heavy attack. I did go flying there. But I'm just going to follow him and keep my damage abilities up. Keep my Volley up, keep my Shade and Debilitate, and then Blood Craze and my other dots. Now once he gets to 66% health, he does summon these Restless Soul adds into the fight, and these are quite annoying. They can damage you pretty well, and they also snare you with their Ice Storm ability. You can interrupt it, which you see right there. So I definitely recommend taking those enemies out first as soon as they pop up, and then once you get all 3 of the Restless Souls down, you can go back to Garen. You can see I'm on the last one here. I kind of lose sight, but I find him hiding behind a pillar, and I'm just going to dot him up. It's even worth dropping a ultimate, in my opinion, just to get him down faster, so you can focus on Garen, who is the main target, of course. Block that knockdown, and then get right back into your rotation. Of course, he's going to continue to teleport. That's just what he does. And then once he gets down further, about 33% health, he's going to summon those adds one more time. Again, throw down some AoE dots, some single target dots, and finish the ads as quickly as possible. Otherwise, they'll just end up doing a lot of damage to you and slowing you down. So I'm going to bash interrupt. I'm going to drop an ultimate and then execute. I get a nice bit of stamina back for finishing off an enemy with that execute on Nightblade. So that is a good benefit. You can see my stamina is getting low. But I do manage to get all 3 ads down, and then I'm just going to focus on Garen finally. He's in execute range, so go ahead and throw in that Killer's Blade for the bonus execute damage. You can see almost hitting for 30k crits on that execute. Keep your dots up, keep your buffs up, and keep on the pressure, and he will go down. So our third boss is sort of secret, sort of hidden on the upper left corner of the map here. We're going to take down the Rat Whisperer. And for this encounter, he does like to run around. So I prefer to just clear this whole section, this whole room. Take care of all the ads here because he could potentially run into them. And that would make the fight, of course, a lot harder, especially on veteran mode. So I'm going to just clear those out first, clear out any trash in the room, and leave the Rat Whisperer to the end here. As you can see, here he is doing his funky little dance for us. And this fight is really interesting, a pretty interesting challenge, I think. You're going to lay down your AoEs and your dots, keep your buffs up as usual. But you can see what's different about this is he does summon ads. Almost every 3 or 4 seconds, he'll summon a new wave of rats to come help him out. And these don't do a lot of damage by themselves, but you can see he summons about 6 at a time. And that damage really can add up. So you want to make sure you're laying down your dots pretty heavily. I went back with Steel Tornado, by the way, for this. So I've replaced Reaper's Mark with Steel Tornado. That way I have both a Stamina AoE and a very powerful Magicka AoE in Sap Essence. So I can swap between those. You do not want to just cast Steel Tornado or just cast Sap Essence because you're going to run out of resources pretty quickly that way. The nice thing about the hybrid setup is that you can alternate between both. You can see there I do Steel Tornado, and then I go back to using Sap Essence, and then my resources can maintain pretty well. Not to mention, I do have Tri-Potions that I'm using. I also have a reduced cooldown on my potions, which makes them pop up even faster. Now, in terms of the ultimate here, I did switch back to Soul Tether on the back bar. You can see I use it there for a nice stun, for a nice AoE damage and healing. You can see every enemy I hit, I get healing back from. So that's another good way to run this fight on the Nightblade, is make sure you're running Soul Tether on your back bar and then mix that in with your Steel Tornado and your Sap Essence to make sure you're damaging every single target here in this fight. Of course, between AoEs, I'm keeping on the pressure. So Debilitate, I want to make sure I hit him with Blood Craze to make sure I have those single target dot applies just to him so that I'm still doing decent damage to him while I'm dealing with the ads at the same time. Now, in terms of his other abilities, he does channel a sort of a meteor or something that crashes down on the ground. You don't have to do an interrupt on that. I find that it doesn't do a lot of damage. It can root you, though. It can kind of slow you down. So you can choose to interrupt right there if you want, or just tank through the damage. I find that on this build, it is tanky enough where even his AoEs aren't hurting me that much, and I can just fight through all of it. So eventually I am getting him down to execute range here. It is hard to just execute and do nothing else, though, because we do have to handle those ads and keep our healing up. So you can see I'm still mixing in Sap Essence while I'm doing the execute there. And then finally I get him down, and you need to finish off the rats as well. But there you go. Finish the Rat Whisperer. So that brings us up to boss number 4, which is Ol Garg. Ol Garg the Hungry. He does have a few ads in his room that you'll have to clear out first. But overall, even on veteran mode, he's not very difficult. He does an AoE, which we saw there. Of course, I am running Deadly Cloak in this situation just to kind of negate some of that AoE damage. It's really not hurting me. He has the big heavy attack there. You want to make sure you block that, or you'll go down. And then what's unique about him is he does have an unblockable fear, which you saw just there. There's no channel for that. There's no way to interrupt him as he fears. So you're pretty much just going to have to take it and either break free, or you can just let the fear run out. So this is kind of a tip here. Many times I will just let the fear run out because it only takes maybe 1 or 2 seconds to complete that fear animation. Versus if I immediately bar swap, yes, I get control back a little bit quicker, but I'm going to burn through my stamina very quickly that way, since he does fear you about once every 10 seconds. So you see, basically depending on my resources, if I'm getting medium to lowest stamina like I am there, I'm not going to break free. I'm just going to let the fear run out so I don't waste that very valuable stamina. Make sure you're popping your potions on this build, of course, laying down your AoEs, keep your buffs up. And you'll very quickly get him into execute range. Make sure that you hit him with your Killer's Blade while maintaining your buffs, and you should be able to take care of him no problem. Second to last boss, we're up to Varain, and he is an interesting fight as well. He does the usual boss heavy attack. Make sure to block that. Then he has some interesting stuns here, which are hard to see, and they come up very quickly. You can see one is that splash attack, which is a very narrow cone, but it comes out very quickly. You can see there, he got me with it again. Very hard to see coming and very hard to block. You see his other attack there is a radial sweep, which can knock you down as well and do pretty significant damage. So I think the strategy here with Varain is really just to keep moving. This is a great fight to practice your mobility. You want to be just close enough where your melee attacks hit him, but you want to be out a little bit farther to avoid, like I didn't, that red AoE right there. And you can see if you're able to move around him kind of in that circular motion, it'll be much easier to dodge that splash attack because the cone is so narrow. So you can see in that case I was moving to the left and I was able to kind of get around it. There with the circle AoE, you can of course roll dodge as I did, and you can avoid the stun that way. But in terms of mechanics, that's really it. Just watch out for the stuns and keep up your rotation. Once it gets down to execute range, you can go ahead and apply your Killer's Blade to your rotation. Make sure you keep up Sap Essence, though, to keep up your damage buff, as well as your other buffs like Deadly Cloak. Make sure he is debuffed with Mark Target to make sure those resistances are as low as possible on him. And he goes down. So that brings us up to our final boss encounter, and it's a good challenge in my opinion, especially on veteran mode. I'm making some adjustments to my abilities. Number one, it is a single target fight primarily, but I need a lot of healing to deal with her damage, so I'm going to swap out Barb Trap for Swallow Soul. This gives me a good heal over time, in addition to all my other heals. On the back bar, I am running Ballista still for the single target damage. I'm going to, of course, make sure my buffs are up, and I'm going to go in. So in terms of your priorities, you must block that heavy attack every time it comes. Even while blocking, depending on your resistances and your buffs, even a blocked heavy attack can hit you for 10k damage. That means if you don't block, you might get one-shotted. So make sure you keep an eye on that. Luckily, it does have a very long animation. You can see her winding up with the daggers beforehand for about 2 seconds. So just keep an eye on that. Like I said, I am running Swallow Soul on the front bar. I'm adding that to the rotation for the extra heal over time. So I've got my heal from Blood Craze, got my heal from Sap Essence, I've got my heal from Swallow Soul, I have my heal from Leeching Strikes, so I have quite a bit of heals over time going on. And that's really necessary because she does so much damage to you. Your other critical things to do here is make sure your Summon Shade is active. That's going to reduce her damage by 15%. Now, once she gets down to about 75% health, she is going to summon these hallucinations, these giant bats. She summons 3 at first. Now, I think this is just kind of a trick on her part. They really don't do a lot of damage, though they can kind of stun you. But basically, all you need to do is make sure you have your volley on the ground, then hit Sap Essence a few times, and then you'll take care of those bats no problem. Of course, after the bats, she does come in. Make sure you block that heavy attack. So once she gets down to 50%, more bats come. It looks like about 5 this time, so the amount does increase each time. But again, you can see I have so much heal over time coming in. It's basically negating all of their damage. So it's very easy to deal with those. Again, make sure you block. Make sure your buffs are maintained. You can see even there, I took a huge hit. That's why you want probably over 20k health on your character alone for this fight if you're doing it solo. Now, the other thing I want to mention in terms of damage mitigation is the Nightblade is pretty unique with that Merciless Resolve skill. You want to, in my opinion, hang on to your bow procs on this fight. You can see I'm never casting Merciless Resolve. I simply got it up to 5 stacks, and I'm just hanging on to it. That's giving me 10% damage mitigation, making her damage a little bit more manageable. You can see there the final wave comes at about 25%. You get 7 giant bats this time. Again, don't worry about it. Make sure your volley's on the ground. Hit them with some sap essence, and they will go down quickly. You can see she's in the final stages here. She ends up getting a new attack, basically her own version of the Nightblade Soul Tether that does pretty strong AoE damage. Though you can block that for a bit of reduced damage if you want. She's going to continue those heavy attack daggers, so make sure you watch out for those and block as needed. In this case, my rotation is so important that I'm really not getting into Killer's Blade quite yet, though I could. I want to make sure my health is in a good place. I want to make sure my Swallow Soul is active, my Rending Slashes are active. I want to make sure all my buffs are on, because you can literally die in a second on this fight if you miss a step in your rotation. So once I feel a little bit more comfortable, I'm going to then incorporate the Killer's Blade, a couple of casts per rotation. But again, you want to make sure you keep up your heals. That's your number one priority in surviving this fight. So you can see she's very low here. I'm going to go ahead and start mixing in those Killer's Blades. I'm going to drop an ultimate for even more damage, and then she is going to go down here. So, great fight, a really good challenge to run by yourself. We do get the monster helm here, the slime craw. We get a necklace here of the sergeant as well, and a couple of trophies. But overall, definitely a very fun dungeon to run solo if you're interested. A very challenging boss fight, especially on veteran mode. So I definitely recommend you check it out. And as always, if you enjoyed the video today, don't forget to crush that like button. I would really appreciate it. I've got more episodes of solo dungeon diving. I'll have those linked for you in the description, as well as a link for the solo Nightblade build that you saw in today's video. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you around in the next video.